Hi, it's your friendly neighborhood middle-aged amateur cartoonist again. My name is Ken Bailey, and I've been an amateur cartoonist, a hobby cartoonist, for almost half a century now. I started in the very early grades of grade school with the hobby of cartooning, and am still doing it all these years later. Those of you who have been following have known that I've made a number of short videos that have been posted here on YouTube and in other places about the fun and creativity of the hobby of cartooning. What I'm hoping to do is both share what I enjoy doing so much with you all, hopefully to your enjoyment, and also possibly to encourage those who would also like to be amateur cartoonists, but really either have not known how to start or, having started, not know exactly where to go next. This is the third installment in a series of very short videos about comic book hero creation and how to go from a single drawing to comic book stories, and eventually to developing your own series. So, welcome aboard for the hopefully third and final installment of creating your own comic book superhero. Now, this is the final drawing, I'll pull back a little, of what we started in part 1 and part 2, starting from a blank piece of paper, drawing the figure. This is my own mighty Energygirl superhero. And then once we had the figure in, giving her a reason to be in that pose. Here we have her stopping an automobile. You're seeing it from the perspective of a person sitting in the passenger seat. And the fact that she has bent the hood up a little bit indicates it was a rather sudden stop. And then lastly, the next step, now, why would this event be happening? So we drew in a railroad crossing signal and a close-up of what looks like a freight train passing by in the background. We now have determined that E-Girl has come on the scene and stopped a car from accidentally driving through a crossing into the path of an oncoming train. Well, that gives us the reason for this particular picture, which again started as just drawing the person. And we explained how by asking various questions, what happens next, how do the people in the car react, how do they feel about being stopped by a superhero, and other questions, we could then decide where to go next to turn this into a story. So now that you've seen the finished work, the next step, I take my original masters and I mount them in plastic sheets. Here we have a very early E-Girl story, which once again started with a single picture. I know it's a little glary, but where she's apparently being accosted at an airport by two thugs, whom she polishes off, and then their boss tries to run her over in a private plane. Narrowly missing her, she grabs onto the front wheel as it goes by, which breaks off, and then boom! I might add that in the E-Girl universe, it's kind of done in the old style of comic books in the 1950s. E-Girl will never kill or intentionally injure anyone. Sometimes, however, villains do die by their own devices. A very wise man once said, "He who rolls a stone, in the end it will roll back upon him," and that does sometimes happen. So the masters go into folders, and then it's time to go down to our local printers. And from the masters, using cardstock for the covers and high-quality gloss paper for the inside pages, we come up with a complete comic book. This is the most recent issue of the Mighty Energygirl, Volume 2, number 27. You can't buy these, so anyone who is concerned, I am using YouTube to advertise. This is not for sale. This is something I just do to keep my skills sharp and also for the pure enjoyment of the hobby. I do occasionally do other types of cartoons for sale, but we're not talking about them right now. We're talking about just having fun. So there's the cover. Page 1 of your comic book should always be a brief bio page of who your hero is, because you want at any time as you tell stories for someone just kind of coming on the train right at the present who knows nothing about your hero to give them a very brief look and a very brief description of who your hero is, what he or she is all about, how they got their powers, etc. Keep it short and then blast off with the current story. I won't take time to tell you this whole story, but just to show you how we have an entire 30-page issue here. Each of these pages run off from a master created like the one you saw created yesterday. And I might add that this particular 30-page comic book, which is about some stolen Native American flutes, long story, and our mighty energy woman who thus is commissioned to try to get them back, started from a single picture. A friend of mine wanted to see me draw E-Girl from just a blank piece of paper, to see the progress happen, or process, from a blank piece of paper, much as you viewers saw this picture created from a blank piece of paper yesterday. Once I got the picture done, I hadn't yet added the color, I wanted to honor my friend, so even though he had left, I put him in the picture. And then I had to ask, now what is going on? Why do these people have the expressions they do? And soon we had a single picture that was filled out to indicate obviously something has been stolen, it probably belonged to him, she's going to go get it back, and then, as we just described, ask questions: what happens next, what happened before this? And starting from this picture, work backwards to set up the situation that led to the stolen flute page, and then what happens next. Anybody who knows me knows that sooner or later it's not unlikely that there will be trains involved. That page was a lot of fun to draw, as was this one, and that one. For those of you who are younger, that is the rear end of a 1950s-style round-end observation car that used to come up at the back end of a passenger train. Great fun to draw. As was the eventual fight where E-Girl corners the guy with the flute still at the railroad station. And now, she is not one to actually hurt someone, but she can throw people around a little bit to make them think she's going to, so that they spill the beans and surrender. And she says, drop that flute. Or obviously she's looking like she's going to sock him, and he says, oh sure, I'll drop it nice and slowly right onto the railroad tracks in front of an approaching train, which gave me an excuse to draw this picture. You can put your other hobbies or things that you do well in your cartoons. I enjoy drawing detailed railroad locomotives, and that gave me an excuse. And gave me an excuse to try posing E-Girl in a new way as jumping off the railroad platform to recover the flutes, which are sitting on the railroad track right in front of the train. For those of you who like to know about art techniques, this is known as, well, I don't know what it's known as, but basically we have turned the character so it looks like the front of her. Her hands, her face, are closer to her, to the viewer rather, than her rear end and her feet. It looks like she's actually coming toward the camera in 3 dimensions, even though obviously it's just a 2-dimensional page. Great way to trick the eye. Once you get used to drawing characters, if you want to challenge yourself, try putting them in a different pose. And if you have to, you can first go into your bathroom and pose in front of the mirror, or you can get various art books or magazines and look for models in that pose. And then try to put your character into a similar pose. Another great thing to do is try facial expressions. We mentioned yesterday that of the human face, the eyebrows are the greatest indicator of the person's emotions or what's going on inside their head. There are endless variations you can try. Here we have a look of slight suspicion. Here we have a look of suspicion mingled with surprise. She's, by the way, just been approached by a character named Nick Surefoot. He is a fictional American Indian detective from, I hope, a fictional tribe called the Choctaws. He also is trying to recover the stolen flutes. We cartoonists can't talk well. We can just draw. We're not much fun at parties. Instead, watch the video. Okay, and then at last here, we have that expression is recognition. One eyebrow raised, indicating innocence, the other eyebrow down, indicating anger or mischievousness. The two put together indicate an innocent mischievousness, which, with the smile added in, is a good way to portray someone is finally catching on to what's going on. It's a friendly expression. Another way to show the same thing is a light bulb over the head. Instead, we use the eyebrows. So, all kinds of little things and tricks you can do. Here we actually show the flute that was stolen, the little part that comes off, known as the bird. My friend makes Native American flutes, and when he first showed me how the little part comes off and how the flute will not play without it, that gave me an idea to take that single-page drawing and make a whole story of it, culminating with what we call defeat snatched from the jaws of victory. Energygirl has recovered the flutes, but since the little removable part called the bird is missing, when she goes to test one, it just goes foosh and no music comes out. Now, our buddy Nick Surefoot could have told her that. He knows all about flutes, but he let her find out for herself. The bad guy must have put the removable parts in his pocket and then made off, knowing that E-Girl would go after the bigger bag with the whole flutes in them. Thus, the flute still cannot play, which gives us the hero shows some despair and feels she has failed everyone, and is left in a heap on the railroad station platform, realizing that in spite of the fact that she can lift a truck, that she is no closer to solving the case than ever, which gives us a chance to go to the three favorite words of tired cartoonists. To be continued, meaning we can close this issue, and we've got a whole month to finish the story next time in issue number 28, and leave our readers hanging, so hopefully they will come back and want to read how it turns out. This comic book, this obviously is one of the printed ones, published ones, duplicated ones, and then I have these loose leaf binders in which we have the master pages for each one of the comic books. What you're looking at here are the masters for each page of the comic book you just looked at. Now, there are those of you who say, but I can't draw like that. Well, you're not supposed to. You're supposed to draw like you draw and tell the stories that you want to tell. Don't just slavishly copy others, even if you just use stick people. If you are your only reader, you're going to have an audience satisfaction rate of 100% if you realize that creativity and cartooning is fun. So don't let anybody judge you by anybody else's work. Sit down, grab a pencil, draw some characters, and start to tell a story. Who knows, you may just unlock the key to find a lifelong hobby of fun, as I have. This is your middle-aged cartoonist, Ken Bailey, saying good day, and go grab a pencil.